So it's the Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli. It's Monza. There's the fabulous old banking, no longer in use, but still has a particular majesty as it cuts through the Royal Park here at Monza, just to the north of Milan, capital city of the northern half of the country. But this circuit been in existence for a mere 102 years. It seeps history, and for the GT2 runners it's an honour to come out and play here. We've got a cracking grid of cars, these very special exotic looking cars. Imagine what they'd be like up on the banking. Far more downforce than the cars that originally raced there. Right, track temperature rising 25 degrees. It's actually dipped a tiny bit, but air temperature is on the rise, 22 degrees, 50 minutes of racing up ahead of us. So perfect conditions. How is it going to shake out? Alexandre Leroy on pole position, and let's take a look at these cars as they assemble on the grid. Spectacular large rear wings, definitely a point of difference, the GT3 runners here at Monza, and the field continues to grow across the seasons. And we've had a great season so far, starting with 2 races in Paul Ricard, 2 in the heat of Misano, and then Spa-Francorchamps supporting the Spa 24 Hours. That was in the end of June. Hockenheim, and now here to Monza. A temple of racing, an honour to race here. You look at the great names across the history. If you win at Monza, it's always a special feather in your cap. We've got a real mix of cars, 4 manufacturers. We've got KTM, Maserati, Mercedes, and Audi down on the grid, working their way to the front. Correct. This is the pole starting car, Alexandre Leroy, one of 2 drivers who are going to be running solo in this 50-minute event. 24 is the number on the bonnet, entrant TFT Racing, and they look very happy with proceedings. Again, drivers sitting in the cockpit, trying to get as much air in there as possible. You certainly would on a day like this. And again, the distinctive KTM bodywork, Martin Koch starting on the outside of the front row. And that's a car that's been placed in many races. And again, it just stands out when you see people seeing the KTM for the first time, with the way the lid effectively lifts up with the windscreen, the side windows. It's something that draws particularly the younger viewers. They always find it very, very appealing indeed, and certainly a far cry from when KTM made its name, most notably with dirt bikes. Maserati GT2's making a real mark. Car number 1, LP Racing. That's Leonardo Guarini sharing with Carlo Tamburini. And the GT2 certainly has extra appeal when it's here on home ground in the north of Italy. Brilliant high-up shot looking down onto the circuit. Drone shots really have augmented the coverage of all sports, but I think motorsport has particularly benefited from the spectacular views. It helps you get to understand the layout of the circuit when you have the view down to the first chicane. That's something very, very special indeed. You can see the melee down there. People are going to wish their drivers form and fortune. Their second race is going to be tomorrow. But let's go down to the grid and hear from Reinhard Koffler. He's in the number 812 entry. That's on the outside of the front row. His teammate Martin Koch will take the start. But now with Martin.
We're down here on the front row now with Reinhard. Reinhard, a 44-point lead in the championship. This could be it today. We could see the championship decided.
No, I mean, it means we did a great work till now, and also with our pole yesterday and the second place now from Martin, we have stunning places to start the race, but the races are always long. Everything can happen. We will do our best job. The KTM crossbow really fits great here on this track, the GT2, so we are really hoping for a good race and just to score good points. There is still Barcelona left. We don't expect it to be so in such good positions, but we take it for sure.
Well, it's been a sterling performance so far this year. You're very humble about it, I have to say. Coming down is a long way down into turn 1 here in Monza. Talk to us about that from a driver's point of view.
Yeah, I mean, there is quite a lot of space. Depends how the leader is putting the starting procedure, but yeah, there are all possibilities. There can be a lot of change in the position, so we just want to keep out of stress and have a good race.
Thank you very much. I wish you the best of luck.
Well, that was cool, calm, and collected from Reinhard Koffler, going to speak to his teammate Martin Koch. Championship leaders by 44 points. So he's not counting his chickens just yet, but it's a good place to be up on the front row. I think apparently, I'm just hearing news, we might be missing a couple of cars, but it's after qualifying. But hopefully they'll be there for race 2, which I was just alluding to, will be tomorrow at 11:10, so marginally earlier than it is today by a couple of hours. But temperature conditions, very nice indeed. The humidity is gradually dropping, which makes things good. But the high-up view nearer to us, the outside of the front row, is the championship leading car, number 812. That's the KTM Crossbow, and the very bright yellow, acid yellow and black Maserati alongside them. Yes, I can just see down on the grid. We are missing the treble 8 NM Racing Team Mercedes GT2, which should have been Stefan Perrin, and the 88 car is also me. It's LP Racing Audi that was Gianluca Giorgi and Stefan Rossina would be racing. Can't quite see if they're ready to start at pit exit. The pit walls are slightly too high, but certainly for those drivers down on the grid, the focus is there. 50 minutes of racing. Where can they place? And don't forget, we've got 2 classes. We've got the AM class as well as the top class 2. So the Pro-Am class is the dominant class. But let's go down for an interview with Gemma. Car number 1, it's the LP Racing crew, and let's hear from Carlo Tamburini.
Carlo, just a quick word if we can. You're on the second row here, a home race for you, of course, as well. And you've had 3 wins this season. What's the objective here? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, of course we're going to go for the win. You know, Monza, everything is a game in the race with the slipstream and everything. So we're going for the win for sure, our home race. So would be incredible. It would mean so much for me and the team. So of course we're going for the win.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck. Hopefully we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks. I hope so.
Thank you, Gemma and Carlo Tamburini. And it's Leonardo Guarini in the cockpit of that, the Swiss racer. He's a bronze-ranked driver, and Carlo's a silver. That's why they're in the Pro-Am class, but it will be Leonardo who starts the race, and not a bad place. Number 1, their car is blue with white and yellow flashes. It's down on the second row of the grid, and alongside is the best place of the Mercedes, which is car number 53, which is a Codis ASP, and it's Christophe Bouret who would start, and Pascal Gibbon who will bring it to the end of this race. One hopes. There it is, car number 87. Again, as I said, 4 manufacturers represented in the race. It's Maserati on pole, KTM, and then Maserati from Mercedes on the second row. Another Maserati, Philippe Pret, who'll be the other driver racing solo. And then a bunch of Mercedes, and the best of the Audis is car number 18, which is sitting down on about the 5th row of the grid. And it's one of the new entries. It's LP Races, Michael Doppelmayr, Pierre Caffa. Right, cars look good. Cars look mean. Sitting, looking down onto the field. There, right. A couple of cars missing, waiting to see what will unfold. The clock will start with 50 minutes to count down. Air temperature 22 degrees, remember that. Track temperature now nearly 35 degrees. The last half an hour has really started to rise. The green flag about to be waved from the gantry, and this field about to be released. Of course, they will run round in their grid formation. Now, taking a look, this is the view that Leonardo Guarini almost has. The camera's just offset behind him. That's the car that's starting from 3rd on the grid. It's car number 1, and it's the LP Racing Maserati GT2. And, of course, the sister car, Philippe Pret, will be at the wheel of that racing solo. He starts a couple of places further back down the order. Up to the first chicane, we heard Gemma Scott talking about the long run down there. Alexandre Leroy for TFT Racing. His Maserati will start first, and then that's in the AM class, and then alongside we have the best of the KTMs. Leonardo Guarini, our camera car, and Christophe Bouret form row number 2. Philippe Pret, who'll be racing his LP Racing Maserati solo, and Gilles Vannelet, a Codis ASP Mercedes, row 3. Mauro Ricci, a Codis ASP Mercedes, row number 4, with the Anderson-driven Resume More Than Racing KTM. Then Philippe Châtelet, LP Racing, he'll be running in the number 18 Audi. And Roberto Pampanini, Dynamic Motorsport, they've had success here before, will be running alongside him. And then Stefan Perrin, NM Racing Team, we think that car may not be starting. And running back down, Sadie Sammini will be the 16th car on the grid. just waiting for, sorry, 15th car on the grid. That's the True Racing KTM. So the field going around and just waiting to see heat in the tyres. This is where the driver really has to focus on what exactly they have to do on the run to the start, because where they're going to need the grip a little bit to get the acceleration away from the start, but also to get the braking done, the turning in point for that first chicane. Many a race over many a decade has had drivers being a little bit too ambitious down into that first corner. But let's see, Alexandre Leroy in pole position will be looking to get that number 24 Maserati hooked up and race on down to that first corner. And as I said, he and Philippe Pret, two Maserati drivers, are going to be going solo, so there won't be that transition when driver number 2 takes over. It'll be all about knowing precisely how the car was handling and then taking that way through to the end of the race. So all focus on what they need to do. Formation lap 50. Sun shining, shadows now being cast. They weren't first thing this morning, they weren't in the middle of the morning, but now we are at 1:15 in the afternoon. Ooh, a little bit of locking up, people leaving their trial braking point into the Ascari chicane. Very late indeed. Practically no wind. It's a still early autumnal day. Well, let's see how the field gets on. So, for a couple of new entries here, Dynamic Motorsport joining this weekend with the number 67 Maserati. Good to have new names coming in. And that's Roberto Pampanini and Mauro Calamia, and they're certainly hoping for great things. And they both raced in the Nürburgring 24 hours and even won their class, so they come here with a bit of momentum in their GT2 entry. But this field now behind the pace car, 2x2, the formation that is required. Our pole starter, Alexandre Leroy, in the Maserati on the left of the screen, and alongside outright championship leader, Martin Koch. Row number 2, Leonardo Guarini, second of the Maseratis, and Christophe Bourret, best of the Mercedes, in 4th place. Philippe Pret, Gilles Vannelet tucked in behind, and let's see how this one is going to shape up. Lights out on the roof of the Lamborghini pace car. That will peel shortly into the pits. Of course, our front runners hang back, waiting for that to withdraw. And it does. Half a second, I thought they'd go for another formation lap. Right, it's all eyes on the lights on the starting gantry. When red turns to green, they can blast off, but before that, no one. There they are, 5 red lights on the gantry, waiting to see if Alexandre Leroy, left of your screen, can make a better start from Martin Koch. Let's see, it's Maserati on pole from KTM. The lights go green, and neat flick, and it's a very, very even start. The first 3 rows, almost no gain from any of them. Couple at the back, losing a little bit of ground, but Alexandre Leroy, that pole position was worth the inside line, but a better run from Martin Koch, championship leader, braking super, super late. Too late, but just gets it hauled through and in behind, everything neat and tidy. But that, no, there was a little bit of contact. I saw a bit of bodywork being removed down there, about 8th position in the field, but that was a really late break from Martin Koch. They were even Stevens on the run down to the first corner, but Alexandre Leroy, maybe not quite as experienced, had to back out a little bit, but he got round the corner safely. He's holding 2nd place. 3rd place is Leonardo Guarini, and the best place of the Mercedes on the grid runs a little bit wide there. That's unfortunate, car number 53. And that was Christophe Bourret, just not quite getting the braking done for the first chicane, the second chicane. KTM, Maserati, let's see as they turn on through. But by braking so late in the KTM from the outside the front row down into the first chicane, they were almost side by side, and he was 3 car lengths later on the brakes. That was a lot. Almost looked as though Koch could brake too late, but he got it turned through the corner, out of the corner. He's leading the race. Right, up to the 3rd chicane, Ascari chicane. Koch, half a second. Leroy, Philippe Pret looking very, very busy. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That's Guarini looking very busy. You get that brilliant high-up shot so late on the brake from the driver on the outside the front row. In behind, yeah, about 6th place. I think there was a little bit of a clatter between a couple of the cars, but by and large, very clear at the start of the race in the GT2 European Series. Down around the middle order. Thomas Anderson, Danish racer, running a little bit wide. I think lost the position coming onto the start-finish straight, but herring clear, 0.8 of a second clear. Martin Koch in his KTM, and then come the two Maseratis, Alexandre Leroy, Leonardo Guarini. When I say two Maseratis, I mean three, because Philippe Pret is in 4th place. He's in car number 2. There he is, right on the tail, turning in. And, oh dear, one of the KTMs has got it wrong. I think that might have been Thomas Anderson. And he's taken out a couple of the other cars, I think. I didn't see how that all started, but we've got a Maserati sitting sideways as well down there. Let's see if that leads to any colour of flag. But a little moment, just the point they were considering braking, possibly the smallest of taps, and the cars go around. The first 4, the race leading Martin Koch, KTM, then Alexandre Leroy, Leonardo Guarini and Philippe Pret coming through. Then there's a bit of a gap, nearly 5 seconds back to Philippe Chatelet, who's had a very good first lap in the number 18 Audi. That certainly gained ground, but it was just behind that gaggle of cars that things all went wrong. Thomas Anderson came across the start-finish line in 6th position, but I fear his was the KTM that went rotating. I'll give you a choice of other drivers behind. I'll wait to see who gets the next timing sector, because we had 3 further KTMs in the field that could have been in that equation. I think they were just that little bit further back. However, leading the race, Martin Koch, is he pulling clear first part of this lap? No. Alexandre Leroy starting to catch him and waved yellow flags to the field to see. The first 4 nose to tail. There's Philippe Pret, the APM Monaco livery on his car. The drivers all heeding the message there. So a Maserati sitting sideways across the track. I fear that's probably Roberto Pampanini, which is the new entry for this weekend, the dynamic motorsport car that had, was just caught up in that incident. He went spinning up the escape road. And just waiting. Safety car out onto track. The message signal to the drivers, the boards with the 2 next to the wave yellow flags with SC. There's the fast starting Audi of Philippe Chatelet up into 5th place. That was certainly places gained because it started down in 9th position. So Chatelet's done well, but there are the 2 fallen cars. Be interesting to see a replay of that, but certainly for the dynamic motorsport car number 67, there it is being towed away. No visible damage, but that's not giving it clear inspection. But he went rotating across the grass in avoidance, unfortunately for him, of the KTM of Thomas Anderson that certainly got caught out in all of that. So the safety car leading the field around. The clock continues to count down. It's a 50-minute race. We've still got just over 45 minutes remaining. Hopefully the clear-up operation should be fairly quick, and then this group of front runners can get going all over again. Now let's take a look. First 4 cars, no problem at all. It's the battle for 6th and 7th positions. The KTM just got caught out by the car that was immediately ahead of it. And as he went one way, unfortunately for Roberto Pampanini, he had to guess which way that was. And he went rotating off there. In fact, he almost got edged off down into turn 1, down into that first chicane. I think he wanted to turn in. The car inside him did not, whereas Thomas Anderson was already rotating across the grass, across the track, and those behind did have to take evasive action. So the safety car leading the field around. Martin Koch in the KTM, and then 3 Maseratis, Alexandre Leroy, Leonardo Guarini and Philippe Pret, with Philippe Chatelet making such a good start to this race. And he was right in the heat of that battle in his Audi and all went a bit crazy behind him. And then behind him, Christophe Bouret is 6th. There is Thomas Anderson's car with a slightly shorter format than it started the race. The nose of that car being rubbed down the barriers on the right-hand side of the track on the approach to the first corner. It's a long, long approach, and he was rotating from quite some way out. That wasn't something that so much happened under braking. It wasn't his braking. I think it was avoiding the car was in front that just seemed to catch him out by maybe braking just ahead of where he thought braking should commence. But round he went. He had to dive to the right, started spinning, and thank goodness no other cars were collected. So number 61, you can see, well, Mauro Ricci's Mercedes did have a little chew of the door, and I think that contact was with Pampanini's car because they were both trying to avoid the spinning KTM, and I think they had a little touch down into the entrance of the first chicane. But leading the race, leading the top category, the Pro-Am category, Martin Koch. So we heard from his teammate Reinhard Koffler down on the grid, and he was being measured and cautious. You can see there someone else's incident can take you out, but by getting to the front of the race with that brilliant late brake move down into the first chicane on the opening lap. Premier position is claimed and held by Martin Koch. Of course, with the safety car, all the field is going to be bunched, so we'll still have that KTM crossbow, 3 Maseratis. We really need Philippe Châtelet to get his Audi onto their tail, which he's doing now in the best of the Audis. In fact, the other one did not start the race, the 88 car for Gianluca Giorgi. Can't tell what the problem is. That did not get to take the start, and hopefully it can be fixed if fixing is the issue required, and go out to the second race. But our entire field going around, we're down to 9 cars with Hubert Trunkenpolz bringing up the rear in his number 17 KTM, and that's from the True Racing squad. He's sharing with Laura Kreimhammer. But for all these, okay, the Audi, there it is in 5th place, is now for Philippe Châtelet, caught the tail of Philippe Pret where he needs to be. Let's work our way down the order, so seeing the last of the KTMs coming through. Shot, which should be Hubert Trunkenpolz. We've actually got a line of KTMs towards the back. We've got Viktor Mraz from Slovakia, sharing with Jan Krabek, and then Sadi Sarmini, who started last on the grid, but he's gained places, and then Hubert Trunkenpolz. But our front-running cars, it's the KTM Martin Koch. The second car we're looking at now is the pole-starting car of Alexandre Leroy. Leonardo Guarini with the with the blue nose on his car and the yellow flashes, and another car with the blue nose, also a Maserati, is Philippe Pret, car number 2. He's running in 4th, and then Philippe Châtelet in his Audi, and Christophe Bouret in the only remaining Mercedes in the race is in 6th place. And incident between car number 80 and 67 under investigation. 80 was Thomas Anderson's car, and 67 was Roberto Pampanini, which the 2 cars that ended off the circuit down at the first chicane. Other cars just left the pits. I think it was Mauro Ricci's car. I saw a flash of a Mercedes leaving the pits, and I think by process that could be his. Oh, I'll tell you what, it might have been Gilles Vannelet's car, possibly car number 87. Yes, I think it could have been Gilles Vannelet's car leading the pits. May have already had a delay, but under the safety car, you're not losing too much ground. But for the crews, it is a 50-minute race. We still have 40 minutes remaining. Plenty to play for. It's going to be how these first 4 cars handle the restart. Actually, we need Philippe Pret. I mean, they're all looking for the lights on the roof light bar on the safety car and looking for signals from the pits. We've had no official notification about how long this safety car period will be, but you have to be on your toes. You're jumping up and down, be ready. That's Hubert Trunkenpolz, car number 17. And he's a lap clear of Mauro Ricci, who is still sitting in the pit lane. Yeah, the car that came out, I'm fairly sure, was Gilles Vannelet, so he's 2 laps down after his delay. How much longer till we get going again? Track temperature continues to rise. It's 37 degrees, but the Lamborghini safety car comes down the start-finish straight. You can just see at the top of your shot, past the old control tower, and the stricken Thomas Anderson entry winched away. His KTM going no further, at least in today's race. That's entered by Resoon Mordan Racing, and so Simon Birch does not get a run on the Saturday race of the GT2. Right, again riding on board with the car that started 3rd on the grid, Leonardo Guarini. This is the first chicane, the scene of the crime was on the approach, which brought out the safety car period, but he's just got all eyes on Alexandre Leroy's Maserati, and in turn in his cockpit, Leroy, our pole starter, is looking at the back of Martin Koch's KTM, who in turn is looking at the light bar on the roof of the Lamborghini safety car, leading the field around. Waiting, checking vital messages from the controls, hearing on the radio questions and answers they're having with their pit crews, but you can still see the waved yellow flags. Of course, they're waving because we've got the safety car leading. They're out all around the circuit. This is the approach of the second chicane. Frustrating for the drivers. They want to be racing. The drivers who are starting the race know that their stint time is actual racing. It's going to be fairly short. Yeah, and so there we are. end of this lap, and among those who ought to be getting on the back of the line, yeah, the number 87 Mercedes. 2 laps down. It's had whatever needed doing done to it in the pits. And Gilles Vanderlei, who's sharing with, as he has for many years, with Jean-Luc Bobelic for ACA ASP, Codis ASP, getting old-fashioned there, gets on the back of the line. But he's 2 laps down, but he's racing, and he at least is fortunate in that. We had 2 that didn't start, and then, of course, that moment. We also... Thomas Anderson and Roberto Pampanini out of the race. Mauro Ricci at the back of the queue. 2 Mercedes at the back of that queue. Right, let's go racing. Let's get the safety car in and the drivers up to speed. And can we have a repeat of the brilliant start he had to this race from Martin Koch, leading the way in the KTM, or not? Let's wait and see. But he's sitting at the front of the queue. He dictates the moment at which he decides when he's going to hair off towards the start-finish line. He falls back from the safety car, needs to keep a clear line of sight to an extent. The track bends to the right all the way through and through and through the Parabolica. He's sweeping away. He's already floored it. He can't be overtaken before the start-finish line, but Alexandre Leroy was very, very good on the restart. He's getting a slipstream, and maybe he can make a move into the first corner. In third place, Guarini's fallen back, but just remember how good at the start of the race Koch was on his late braking. He's on the outside line in the KTM, and again he can brake later than the Maserati. Maybe it's lighter, maybe he's just braver, maybe he's better on tyres that haven't got much heat into them. But again, just as it looked as though Alexandre Leroy had things under control and would make the move. He had the slipstream, he used the slipstream, but Koch was fantastic on the brakes in his KTM. He holds on to the lead of the race. Right, riding on board, this is the car in third place, Leonardo Guarini. He's had a really good exit of the chicane, and he's catching them. He was some distance further behind into the first chicane, but into the second chicane, he's caught right onto the tail of Alexandre Leroy, but could not make a move. The next corner is the first of the Lesmos, not an overtaking place if cars are as equally balanced as this. It's going to really be about being in a position to come through onto the start-finish straight, get a tow, and try again to make a move to take a dive up the inside of a rival into that first chicane. But at the moment, just a tiny advantage from the championship leader, from Martin Koch. Fantastic low shot there, looking through the barriers as they approach the Ascari chicane into that compression under the old circuit, the old bank circuit. KTM looking so well balanced through the Ascari chicane. There's Philippe Pret, third of the Maseratis. Yeah, already you can see that toe is being broken. Desperately, Alexandre Leroy is trying to get close enough that he might be able to get a bit of a toe, bit of a slipstream down the start-finish straight, but he is being kept absolutely on his toes by Leonardo Guarini. That is just the slight thing that's taking his attention away from seeing if he can get any closer, but a brilliant exit from onto the start-finish straight by our race leader, by Martin Koch. Right, he's 5/10, he's half a second clear. The battle for second place is maybe where the action's going to be, because Guarini's lined up the inside, coming down the inside. He's braking so late, he's having a think about the lead. No, it's got to really stand on the anchors there. That won't help his exit from the corner, but it was worth a look, worth a gamble. But Guarini, here we are, riding on board with him. Just remember, he started this lap in third. He's starting... Sorry, the last lap in third. This lap he's starting in second. He's having a nice run through the Curva Grande, the Biassoni as it's now known, but surely he's not going to have a look up the inside into the chicane. And Philippe Pret has decided he wants the inside line of Alexandre Leroy. Can he get the braking done? The red, white and blue LP Racing entry Maserati absolutely can. So it's been a bit of a horror for Alexandre Leroy. He started on pole. I think he could probably live with falling to second. That brilliant late braking manoeuvre from Martin Koch in the KTM, but losing 2 positions in fairly quick order to fellow Maserati drivers is not what he wanted. Leonardo Guarini went past, Philippe Pret went past. And Guarini is suddenly looking very, very interested, taking a look at the tail of the KTM. Will Koch hang on? There are certain points on the track where Koch's fantastic. And again, I just think in that broad third chicane, the KTM looks fantastic. It's so well seated on the circuit. But at certain points on the track, I would reckon Leonardo Guarini maybe has a performance advantage, because the way he's able to haul it in. Now let's see what he can do. He used the toe last time around to get past Leonardo Guarini. Maybe he can use the toe this time around as effectively, and he'd certainly brake very late into the first chicane. What is he going to do about... Oh yeah, he's properly in the toe. And alongside. Now, who's going to brake later? Certainly Koch has been fantastic on the brakes. He's a car length behind. He's tucked in underneath. And he didn't get to use his late braking. Yeah, now look, Guarini braked too late going into the chicane. He's got plenty of punch from the Maserati on the exit, but that is interesting because he really wanted to be sure he was going to be fully clear of the KTM, wanted to turn in, had to brake later than he planned, and very nearly ran out of track at the first chicane. But our first 4 cars almost nose to tail, then a bit of a gap back to the Audi of Philippe Châtelet, only a couple of seconds, but this is a cracking GT2 battle. KTM in the mix, no longer leading. There it is in second place. It's Maserati's first, third and fourth in the order of Guarini, Pret and Leroy. There's Leroy on pole. And like Philippe Pret, the car in front of him, he's doing this entire 50 minutes solo. So he'll be getting a good workout around the chicanes of Monza. And for the second drivers, their turn will come, and fairly soon. Right. Now, in front, will Guarini escape? That is the question. Carlo Tamburini, we heard from him before the race. He's thinking and plotting and just trying to imagine, will he take over that car from the lead of the race, from Leonardo Guarini? Now, coming down the back straight, if you will, from the Ascari chicane all the way down to that long, long right-hander. Philippe Pret's taking a look, not a serious attempt, quite surely, quite clearly, as they turn in. But working it well, neat and tidy. Oh, side by side, Philippe Pret's taking a look as they go through. But he's had a good run down the Parabolica. Well, Philippe Pret's made that work very nicely indeed. The KTM just can't live in a straight line with the Maseratis. They just look very, very quick indeed. But through the chicane, he's very good. Oh, well, Philippe Pret slightly messy there, but that's because he had to. He was braking later than he planned, but third became second. Alexandre Leroy in fourth place has made a better exit than either of them. He's now getting a run. He's got a better exit speed. He's punching into the air just behind the KTM. Battle for third place. Our race leader, Leonardo Guarini, is pulling clear. 0.8 of a second, nearly 9/10 on the start-finish line. No, Leroy, there he is in fourth place, stays in fourth place into the second chicane. Slightly better exit. Again, you get to the twisty parts, that's where the KTM has its advantage. Get to the faster parts, that's where the Maserati GT2s are just so strong. Very nearly 20 minutes run in this race. We had the safety car period. The safety car period is behind us, and it's Maserati hunting KTM. Two of the trio have got past, and right now is there going to be a look up the inside from Alexandre Leroy into the third chicane? Yes, but not a serious one. He didn't grab it with both hands. Fair enough, worth having a look. Martin Koch actually in the non-Maserati in the top four. It's the KTM running in third place. Just kicked up the dust on the exit of the chicane, trying to get the quickest exit he could, because he knows if he's not getting as much momentum through the exit of the chicane, the Maserati seemed to have just a little bit more grunt and able to pick him off on the faster bits, but he held on to that third place. And I'd say Philippe Châtelet is having a good little run behind. He seems to be, he was 4 seconds down on them last time around in fifth. This time I'm trying to see, has he gained, has he lost, just going over the line in the background? Yeah, he's brought it down, 2.6. I'm waiting for the time. No, he's actually lost a bit more, beg your pardon. Trick of the light. In fact, he's lost about 4 seconds. No, I'll tell you what's happened. Philippe Châtelet has... Okay, he's lost ground because he's come into the pits. Right, okay. He was catching. He was definitely closer. And the reason I suddenly lost him from sight, because here he is, car number 18. Time for driver change. If you recognise the helmet, it's been seen in races all around the world. And number 18 Audi should have a Pierre Caffer. You can see the red, yellow and black helmet that the German racers had for years, and he's very, very handy in anything that is an Audi. Well, other things too, but neat and tidy for him. Right. Guarini, Pret, Maserati. Koch, look at him there. In the KTM. Oh, and a big, big dusty moment. It's, oh dear, just running a little wide. Martin Koch just mentioning was he beginning to hang on to the Maseratis, and he's looped it. He's facing the wrong way on the track. Oh, the exit of the second Lesmo's not a nice place to sit. And sitting, oh, he worked so hard. That brilliant start from championship leader Martin Koch. now has to use the help of the marshals to get that car spun around and facing in the right direction. Last time we saw him in shot, he was sitting sideways across the track, needing to do a bit of a three-point turn. Now, what went wrong? At this point, he's tucked in behind. He's just been passed by Alexandre Leroy, who picked him off on the start-finish straight and simply ran wide and then looped it around. You're hoping you can stay on the black stuff. Luckily, nobody was totally close in behind, and I think he's hooked it up and got going again, just waiting for evidence of that. He's going to be coming around. Will he come into the pits? That's probably a good time to do so. Right, I tell you who has come into the pits is Leonardo Guarini. And he had a very, very good stint in that #1 Maserati. So, Carlo Tamburini taking it over from him and still waiting for 1, 2, 4 of the runners to make their pit stop to call at the pits. And Martin Koch is one. Has he actually made it back? Is this him? No, down into the first corner, waiting for 8-12. But these two travelling without trouble, but they do need to call at the pits. But they're running solo, so no drivers waiting to take over from our race leader Philippe Pret and for Alexandre Leroy. And here comes the 8-12. Oh, that has lost a lot of time in the KTM. It did seem in the battle he was relying on late braking. He made it work at the start of the race by taking the lead, and he resisted for as long as he could, but those Maseratis hunting very, very handily in a pack. Carlo Tamburini being strapped into the #1. LP Racing crew there, and Philippe Pret, well, he's also from LP Racing. I'm just starting to sense that Alexandre Leroy is starting to show the pace that put him on pole position, because he's not falling away from Pret. They were 1.1 seconds apart when they crossed the start-finish line last time around. A little bow from Martin Koch to Reinhard Koffler there. He's jumped out of the KTM that led, that fell back down the order to 4th place, picked off by 1, 2, 3 Maseratis. But we're staying in the hunt. But it's not just about the starting stint, it's about the finishing stint. If you've got 2 good average stint times, then you're likely to win the race. But again, if you're running in the Pro-Am class, you've got a Pro and an Am. But certainly for the 8-12 crew, they've got a silver and a bronze, and Martin is the bronze driver. Reinhard Koffler should be slightly quicker. Let's see what he can do in the second half of the race. But the time lost getting going surely means they won't be taking their 4th win of the year. Getting close to the halfway point in the race. Majority of crews have served the pit stop. Philippe Pret has not. He's leading the race, the #2. The blue, white and red Maserati, the car tucked in behind, is Alexandre Leroy. He did actually lose 0.2 of a second. Here he is, 2nd place, our pole starter. 1.3 seconds in arrears. And then 15 places for 15 places, I think, not 15 seconds further back. It's a driver who started last on the grid, Sadie Samani, car number 16. He's got Klaus Angerhofer waiting to take over his True Racing KTM Crossbow. Pit window is still open. Gravel on track at the exit of the corner. This duo have just been through. They know about it. It's been there for a couple of laps. It's what was deposited by Martin Koch when he spun out of 4th place. But finding gravel on the track for the first time on the exit of Lesmo is one thing, but the next time you've got to just guess that it might still be there. And the KTM only now just leaving the pits with Reinhard Koffler at the wheel. Really even between Philippe Pret in our race leading number 2 LP Racing Maserati and Alexandre Leroy, but the last couple of laps been just marginally better for Philippe Pret. Just had sight of the number 18 Audi sitting in the pits, and I tell you what, it just came out of the pits, and it came in from, remember, it was going very well, just catching the front group of cars, but it appears to be retired, so that is very, very disappointing, because that showed decent pace. Right, meet this driver. His name is Philippe Pret. You're about to meet him again, because he's effectively going to go round and have a little chat with the crew, and then he will get back on board again, because he's driving solo during the refueling. He's not in the car. But right, what have we got out front? Having served its pit stop, we had Leonardo Guarini do the first part of the race, carried a camera for us, and great racing action from the #1 Maserati from LP Racing. Carlo Tamburini second half of the race will be his. And what was a fantastic four-way battle at the front of the race, one KTM being ganged up on and bullied a little bit by the Maseratis, appears to have broken up a little bit, but don't forget the drivers didn't all come in on the same lap. They could suddenly all rejoin. The last two cars now waiting to go back. Sadie Samini and Alexandre Leroy have not even entered the pit lane yet. Pit window is still open, so they can do so. Waiting for number 2 to get back out in the race. Of course, the pit crew with the lollipops will let them know when they can go, when they reach the minimum time they have to serve at a standstill in the pits. And fastest time in the race so far set by Alexandre Leroy. 1 minute 47 second fastest time. The fastest time was set by Gilles Vannelet. Remember, he came out, he was 2 laps down, but he set a 1 minute 47.176 seconds lap. But that's actually been beaten just now by Leonardo Guarini's car, the number 1 Maserati. Oh dear. Oh, things can go wrong. Remember the 812 KTM had a spin, came into the pit lane, and it's being under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. Just sometimes happen. One thing go wrong and it can lead to another. Right, what have we got left in this race? 22 minutes out of 50 still to play for. That's Alexandre Leroy getting back on board the TFT Racing Maserati that he's driving solo. So he's done the first stint, and he's going to do the second stint. But the driver who doesn't have a replacement driver still has to get out of the car, has to be unbuckled out of the car. Then they can climb back in and get strapped in all over again, which is what Philippe Pret ought to be doing. But he came in a lap or so earlier, so it gives him a bit more time to settle back in. But right now, beautiful day here at Monza. It's the GT2, the Fanatec GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli. It was shaping up to be a real cracker. Will we have one on the run to the finish? Or we certainly our championship leading crew, the 812 of Martin Koch and the second driver, Reinhard Koffler, 44-point lead. There was talk before the race, can you settle it here? Well, probably not in this race, because certainly with the setback, the 812 has fallen down to 8th place. Dare say they could gain a few positions, but it took quite a while for the car to be spun around, face the right way, get going again, and then there is a possible sort of Damocles, if you will, hanging over them, because possible speeding in the pit lane, which comes with a fine. There is the 812, Reinhard Koffler settling down. He's got to just sort of forget the fact the car has spun, get back out. Alexandre Leroy has just rocketed out of the pits. I don't think he's slotted into the lead of the race. We'll have to wait and see. I expect it to be Carlo Tamburini at the very front. Philippe Pret will probably be getting back out into about 3rd place. Let's see. But I expect it to be Maserati's 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Fabulous shot as the cars go under the bridge, carrying the old bank circuit. Hard to believe that used to be conjoined. You could either race on it separately, or in some races in the 1920s, 30s, and even through to the 50s, it was used as well as part of an extension of the Grand Prix circuit lap. You'd have the Grand Prix circuit and yet also go on to the oval. Phenomenal. Great piece of racing history. Right, Carlo Tamburini leading the race now. There is the margin. Alexandre Leroy 15 seconds down, but I'll get clear representation on that, because was that Alexandre still in the pit lane? So Maserati. So Philippe Pret driving solo in 3rd place. Jan Krabek's really moved up the order in his KTM to be the best of the KTM drivers. His car started by Victor Moraz, Slovakian driver, now in the hands of the Czech. And car number 16 is Klaus Angerhofer, who is in 2nd place. Some of the KTMs seem to have, around the time of the pit stops, they didn't have any mishaps, and they've sort of moved up the order. But a lot of the drivers, they appear to be almost racing entirely on their own. The first half of the race, everybody was with everybody else. And, well, that's interesting. Reinhard Koffler, just mentioned his name, settling in very nicely, out on the track after the mishap that Martin Koch had, and he is flying. New fastest lap of the race. That was last time around. He came out of the pits in 8th position. Last car on the lead lap, some distance behind Pascal Gibbon, who's in 7th in the number 53 a Codis ASP Mercedes. And let's see how it's going to come down, because he is lapping at least 3 seconds a lap faster than the car ahead of him. But actually, I think doing the maths with 18.5 minutes remaining, don't think it's quite going to happen for him, but you never know. Quick. Alexandre Leroy started from pole. His Maserati isn't leading, but this one is. This is the one started by Leonardo Guarini. Now Carlo Tamburini at the wheel, and he is actually almost right on the money. Fastest lap of the race is not his, but if he finds 300ths of a second, it could be. So, as expected, the silver-ranked Carlo Tamburini gets on board, gets on with the job. What's his margin of advantage over Alexandre Leroy? Last timing interval, 7 and a bit seconds. And in terms of their pace since rejoining, it's going to go out by about close on a second a lap if all the omens and previous indications seem to be correct. Clock continues to count down. 17.5 minutes remain. It's a 50-minute race. Right, the message has just come through. The 812 KTM, started by Martin Koch, speeding in the pit lane. I don't know if it was for him or for Reinhard Koffler, who was anxious to make up ground. Drive-through penalty coming their way. They're down in 8th place there. 36 seconds down on the next car in front of them, and they're going to be a whole lot more. For Philippe Pret, though, out in 3rd place. Alexandre Leroy, 2nd place for him. So there's the message. Drive-through penalty, car 812 for speeding in the pit lane. So for Reinhard Koffler, that will be very, very disappointing indeed. All he was trying to do was play catch-up. He'd fallen right to the back of the lead lap. He'd showed immediate pace on rejoining, but that's going to have to come in. And Alexandre Leroy, you know, he's just picking up the pace since he came in. It's like he had a little reassessment when he came in, having had a really positive start to the race. He then got out of the car, has strapped himself back in, and running in clear air on his own. He's putting in some very, very tidy laps there, but 1 minute for, his last, he's losing about 8 tenths of a second to Carlo Tamburini, so he's not closing in 2nd place, quite the reverse, but he's got a decent margin of 4 and a bit seconds over Philippe Pret. Right, is the 812 KTM going to come into the pits this time around to do the drive-through? Let's wait and see, but they've still got 16 minutes in which to come and do so. Yep, take it at the earliest opportunity. I think that's a sensible thing to do. Gap between 1st and 2nd, Carlo Tamburini and Alexandre Leroy, is 8.4 seconds, but just looking at the pace that Tamburini is setting around this lap, it is stretching. I think he's going to gain about another 6 or 7 tenths. There is the visual. Race leader, Carlo Tamburini. 2nd place, Alexandre Leroy. 3rd place, yes, another Maserati in the background. It's Philippe Pret. Pret is starting to just get a tiny bit closer to Leroy. I think Leroy may be able to hang on because their times are very, very similar. Then there's a gap of nearly 10 seconds back to Jan Krabek, who's in the number 89 KTM Crossbow from RTR Projects. Yeah, Krabek's lapping at decent speed, but not going to close on those in front. Laura Kryhammer not too far behind him. Oh, sorry, Laura's the one that's 9 seconds down. Right, APM. This is Philippe Pret in his Maserati. Getting the braking very neat and tidy down into that first chicane. Carrying the speed. That's what Monza's all about. It's, yes, you got the chicanes and, you know, you talk to a driver who raced before, it totally transformed the circuit, but this circuit in up to 1971 when they had that amazing 5-car finish in the Grand Prix, closest ever with 5 cars covered by about the length of a sneeze, but the slipstreaming packs were considered too dangerous, particularly actually in the Formula 3 race where you used to have about 8 or 9 cars in every single gaggle. But certainly since 1972 we're accustomed to the chicanes. They've changed their shape, their size, their format, but they're still very much a feature of this circuit. And our race leader, Carlo Tamburini, one of the KTMs up in front of him, but his pace is very strong indeed. Now, let's take a look. 2 KTMs, and then a Mercedes in the mix. I think that's Pascal Guibon in the background of the shot. So, Car number 16, that's Klaus Angerhofer. And in fact, just noticing that one of the doors has popped up. Often a problem on this car, it's actually the window, because of course on the KTM Crossbow, the whole unit lifts up on hinges so the drivers can get in and out, but the side window has flapped open. That's not something you want. And over the years, particularly with gull wing doors on cars and these sort of crab tops, it can be a problem. Certainly an earlier Mercedes, about a decade ago, the SLS used to have problems with the gull wing doors popping open, and when a driver's going around a circuit trying to hold the door down with one hand, that's suboptimal, as certain people might have said. And the number 53 Mercedes, talked to Pascal Guibon. He's got to find 4 seconds to catch the third of the KTM, so he's running in 7th, the best of Mercedes. We've got 3 Maseratis, 3 KTMs, which is Jan Krabbeck, Laura Kreihammer, and Klaus Angerhofer, and then Pascal Guibon there. He gains a little bit. He gained a tiny bit on them last time around, but he's another 3 and a bit seconds back. But Carlo Tamburini stretching his legs at the lead of the race. 10.2 seconds clear at the start of the lap, gaining a second or so, a fraction of a second or so. Well, Alexandre Leroy, who I think has got the measure of Philippe Pret, but we'll see. Both these drivers in second and third are driving solo. How tired are they feeling? Is their pace going to drop away? But actually, still looking very, very good. But all along, Carlo Tamburini, this car, this Maserati, blue, yellow and white, pulling clear, number 1 on the door. And it's been a very good race for Leonardo Guarini, who got some real racing, and Carlo Tamburini, who's been out on his own, but just stretching his margin of advantage, stretching it the whole time. And again, a driver of Carlo's merit, you'd expect that to be the case. Riding on board with our race leader. It's such a long straight, the start for the straight. Past the exit of the pits, flashing away. There's a driver up in front who he'll sort of close in on, but plenty of space, and another very, very strong lap, very close to his best lap, just about 0.15 of a second down. So again, it's not just the speed, it's the consistent pace, and his margin of advantage over Alexandre Leroy went out by over a second on that lap, gained 1.1 seconds. So surely it's not in the bag, but with 11 minutes remaining, it's approaching the checkout, put it that way. Carlo Tamburini just running very nicely, catching one of the KTMs. Remember Thomas Anderson, we lost his KTM, same time as Roberto Pampanini, out of the race down at the first chicane. In fact, it's the 812 he's catching. That's sort of insult to injury, because Reinhard Koffler, no sooner had he taken over the car than it was served with a drive-through penalty. This is the car that started on pole position in the hands of his teammate Martin Koch. Don't know if it was speeding on the way in or out of the pit lane. It matters not. Also was the spin for Koch that dropped him from... He'd fallen behind the 3 Maseratis, but was right on the tail. Had that spin out of the Lesmos, and it was a case of trying to play catch-up. But with the drive-through penalty, 8th place is cemented for them. They will not catch the 7th place car, which is Pascal Guibon's Mercedes. So race leader against the car that had led the early stages, the early stint here, before eventually the KTM was picked off not once but twice, but 3 times as the Maseratis came through. And it was Leonardo Guarini who got to the front of the bunch, handed over to Carlo Tamburini, and Carlo is making it look neat, tidy, consistent, and another lap within a 1/10 of a second of his very best pace. So he's metronomic in his pace. He might lose a bit of time around this lap, but Reinhard Koffler is probably lapping at the same pace, so he's not going to trip over him. Fabulous high up, a low down drone shot showing us the action there. Great development of technology to help us with just getting ever better images of the cars. What's unfolding in the remainder of the race? No further penalties being suggested or issued. It was just the 812 KTM that picked up the punishment there. Again, these 3 chicanes, even in a field when the drivers are a little bit separated, they know that they've got to keep the momentum going, they've got to keep it smooth. We've seen cars looping around, including that number 812 KTM. Moments in attention, running a little bit wide on the exit, particularly of the second Lesmo, and things can come undone. Pascal Gibbon getting a little bit closer. So I think next car up the road should be Klaus Angerhofer in the number 16 True Racing. No, it's not his. In fact, yeah, looking at that, Jean-Luc Bobelic. Of course, this is the car that was delayed by 2 laps. And Bobelic pressing on, actually. Just set the fastest first sector time of anyone. So Bobelic in the Acodis ASP Mercedes is suddenly getting a real get-go. He's not going to be able to get any higher than 9th place, but he's just put in some very impressive first sector time. Not quite as good in the second sector, but you know, all you can go for is the fastest lap you can achieve. And in fact, the new fastest lap of the race has just been set by who? By Carlo Tamburini, 1 minute 46.0 seconds. He's stretching his advantage, only 14 seconds clear. But you know, for the 87 Mercedes, it's about pride. They've got the race tomorrow. If they're developing their setup, then all well and good. This circuit, with resurfaced for 2024, it's felt like a very, very different playing field for all of them, but getting accustomed to it with every single lap. And our race leader, Carlo Tamburini, just put another lap on arrival, but 13.9 seconds to this driver, Alexandre Leroy, in second place. He's turning into the second chicane. That's a corner many a driver has dipped a wheel into the gravel. And then, of course, they come up to the sort of most tree-lined section of the circuit. Trees been moved back in the recent decades. Lesmo 1 and 2. And that wonderful run down this short straight back to the Ascari chicane. There's Alexandre Leroy in second place overall. He's been lapping consistently well, and just with each lap, I wondered whether we would have Philippe Pret gain or lose. For several laps, the gap stayed at 4 seconds, but the last few laps have been better for this driver, Alexandre Leroy, from the other solo racer, Philippe Pret, because their margin between them grew from 4 seconds to the best part of 6 seconds. And Leroy looking very neat and tidy, and we know he's neat, tidy and fast because he took pole position. There's Philippe Pret in the background. So it's Maserati's first, second and third. Carlo Tamburini, Alexandre Leroy and Philippe Pret. Then behind Pret, the best of the rest is Jan Krabek, number 89 KTM, who is back by another 11 seconds. So top 4 cars covered by 16 seconds. Carlo Tamburini pacing it all the way home, and home is coming soon. 6 minutes and a little bit of small change left on the clock in this 50-minute encounter. So Philippe Pret, of course, his son a racer as well, Louis Pret, and in fact their long-time teammate Vincent Labrille also racing here in the GT3, racing for the AF Corse, the Ferrari team. But it's Maseratis all the way in this. 3 Maseratis in the first 3 positions, and then in a neat, tidy order, Jan Krabek, Laura Kreiheimer, Klaus Angerhofer running in another trio of cars from a different manufacturer, the KTMs. Then about 3 seconds, 4 seconds behind them is Pascal Gibbon, the number 53. Mercedes working his way around the circuit for his team, which is Acodis ASP. And again, looking to run towards the edge of the circuit, a pair of KTMs there. Laura Kreiheimer, Klaus Angerhofer. Now, are we going to get any changes in the final 5 minutes or so of this race? Certainly not between first and second, because the margin is almost 15 seconds. Carlo Tamburini's been pulling clear with every lap, but there may just be a little change between the Laura Kreiheimer, Klaus Angerhofer KTMs. They're both from the same team, True Racing. No, I don't think the gap is going to be able to be closed just over the last few laps. They're lapping at fairly similar pace, but a little bit of gain from Angerhofer. Not by enough, though. Carlo Tamburini now 16 seconds clear. He's got this one in the bag. Again, looking at Klaus Angerhofer. He's running in 5th place, 6th place, I beg your pardon, behind Laura Kreiheimer. Waiting to see what the margin is between these teammates from True Racing, their orange and black KTM crossbows. Kreiheimer goes across the line, and 3.3 seconds later, Okay, Kryhammer's settled down a little bit, gained a little bit. Pascal Guibon's catching the pair of them, but the clock will not be his friend. It will count down before he catches up. Fastest lap of the race last time around from our race leader, Carlo Tamburini, now down to 1 minute 45.9 seconds. He's not just cruising home, he's powering home in this race. The first of 2 encounters of the GT2 European Series here at Monza. Hopefully the weather will be like this for tomorrow's race as well. But our race leader, Carlo Tamburini, there he is, neat, tidy and very quick indeed. And actually Alexandre Leroy in second place has picked up his pace as well. And is looking, very quick at the end of the race. But really, Carlo Tamburini, you expected him once he'd taken over in the lead to pull clear. That's precisely what he's managed to do. And his margin is growing with every lap. A fabulous high-up shot down into that very tight first chicane. Hard right, and it's not a 90 right, it's more like a 110-degree right, and then hard to the left, and then it's accelerate all the way through Biasone, also formerly known as Curva Grande, and that leads you up to the second chicane, going past the woods in this royal park. 102 years ago they opened the circuit. There's the high-up view to the second chicane, this one being left and then right. A lot of drivers get done for exceeding track limits on the exit and dipping wheels into the gravel, and then the first of the 2 Lesmos follows very soon thereafter. Years gone by, the trees were much closer to the track on driver's left. Now there's a bit more space, but then they get to one of the trickiest corners on the circuit, the Lesmo 2, the Lesmo out. Many a driver has looped it round into the gravel there. Then the dipping run all the way down under the old circuit. You're about to see the bridge just over. There it is, the fabulous banked section of the speed oval. And then considering braking, leaving a braking late into the Ascari chicane. Quite a few drivers taking the gravel trap, and the exit from here is so important over that curbing, but not too far over for the run all the way down to the parabolic. There it is, the approach to the final corner in the top of your screen, and Carlo Tamburini may well win this race by close on 20 seconds. He's 16.9 seconds clear. He's got 1 further lap to go. We've got just more than 1 minute on the clock, so a further lap will follow. That will be lap 24 on the board. And I'd feel fairly certain that his margin of advantage over Alexandre Leroy will have grown to 17, possibly 18 seconds. Another quick, consistent lap from Carlo Tamburini. That's been the key for this #1 Maserati. Braking for the first corner, no immediate threat. He can be neat, he can be tidy, and he would have obviously got the clue. This is the final lap, so he's just got to work his way around it. I don't think there are any cars immediately ahead to interrupt his flow, and his around it sweeps this GT2 car. It looks like it's going to be a 1-2-3 for the Maserati GT2. His margin is now 18.5 seconds. Will he make it 20 on this final lap? It matters not. The win is in the bag for the driver standing in front of their pit garage. That's Leonardo Guarini, and the driver pressing on in immaculate fashion, Carlo Tamburini. And again, just looking at the pace, the 812 Reinhard Koffler-driven car has had since it's come out. It all but matches the fastest lap from Carlo Tamburini, just 18 thousandths of a second slower. But with that drive-through penalty and a spin in reverse order, Reinhard Koffler can hope for no more than 8th position. But he's really been getting a great move on. But this race, the first of 2 races for the GT2 European Series, sponsored by Fanatec, belongs to the #1 crew from LP Racing. A Lamborghini, here it is, with just 1 corner to go. Started by Leonardo Guarini and finished off in immense style by Carlo Tamburini. Just has to pick his turning point. Doesn't have to worry about running right to the edge. His momentum out of the corner matters really not at all, because with such a margin, and again, he's gained more. It might end up being 20 seconds, but it's going to be the next closest thing. The checkered flag is waved. Victory to Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini. Delight for Luca Piria up on the wall. His team has taken a win ahead of 2 other crews, also in Maseratis. So here comes the second place driver, the driver who started from pole, driving solo, as is the driver in 3rd place. Here's Alexandre Leroy, and what is the margin at the end? It is, wait for it, 20.3 seconds, and then Philippe Pret also driving solo. Here he comes, the #2 Maserati, also entered by LP Racing, takes 3rd place. So the 2 drivers who decided to go go solo have made it work for them, second and third overall, but nothing they could do about Leonardo Guarini, Carlo Tamburini. Jan Krabek, lights are flashing on his number 89 KTM for RCR Projects, comes through to win the KTM battle in fourth place overall, 7 seconds down on Philippe Pret, so he went well at the end of the race. And then waiting, Laura Kreihammer just ahead of Klaus Angerhofer, and I think all along Pascal Guibon in the background of the shot in the best of the Mercedes takes 7th place. Guarini happy, Tamburini in the cockpit, bringing it home. So there we are, victory in the first of the 2 GT2 races here at Monza. And it really, once we had that fabulous four-way battle for the lead in the first half of the race, it settled into a dominant pattern for Carlo Tamburini. Took over in the lead and certainly showed a very fresh and rapid approach to take victory. So that's the first of the 2 races for the Fanatec GT2 European Series, and someone has very much laid down a marker. And just remember, the driver that had a huge lead in the championship, the drivers, Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler, they ended up in 8th place today. They came here with a 44-point lead, so there was talk of them wrapping up the title, and certainly Reinhard Koffler didn't want to hear of that. And when you've inserted a spin and your car facing backwards on the exit of the second Lesmo, and then speeding in the pit lane to earn you a drive-through penalty, you can expect no more than somewhere like 8th. But let's not take away from LP Racing, from Leonardo Guarini, who's cooling down in the pit lane, and his teammate Carlo Tamburini, who's just entering that same pit lane right now with a victory in race number 1 well and truly in the bag. And in the AM class, by the way, victory went to the car in 5th place overall, Laura Kreihammer, sharing with Hubert Trunkenpolz, all Austrian pairing in their KTM crossbow, taking a victory in their class. In fact, I'm talking complete nonsense. The Pro-Am class victory went to Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini. Sorry, they're at the top of the table. Victory in the AM class went to Alexandre Leroy, who finished 2nd overall, driving solo. So Carlo Tamburini taking all the pats on the back. Certainly great happiness, and for an Italian to win at Monza is a happy day. Good job, man. That sort of sums it up. Very, very international down there, but it was neat, it was tidy, and it was fast, which is all you can ask of your drivers. And again, looking at the points, the 3rd car in the Pro-Am class was the championship leader, so they have actually put a few more points in the pot. So I'm talking of Martin Koch, had a spin, and Reinhard Koffler. But let's go down and hear from the winners, Leonardo Guarini, who is with Carlo Tamburini and Gemma.
Congratulations to you both. That was an absolutely textbook race in that sense. Carlo, to take the win here at home, that must mean a lot.
Yeah, it's really special. You know, I told you on the grid we're going to go for the win, and we went for the win. It's a pleasure, you know, the team, the sponsors, the family, everyone is based around here. So it's extra special, really. Now let's have a pasta together.
Celebrate with pasta, Leonardo. You set it up from the beginning of the race, though.
Yeah, he said it all. It's you know, it's very good for us to be back here in Monza, and we're enjoying it. And thanks for everyone and the team. And Carlo did a fantastic job. So yeah.
Win number 4, check. Congratulations, lads. Well done.
Thanks.
Well, indeed, that says it all. 4th win of the season. So here we have Leonardo Guarini got up to the lead of the race before the pit stops, and Carlo Tamburini brought it through, and their Maserati hooked up beautifully around the Monza circuit. Riding the chicanes, but not too much. Speed down the straights, and it hunted very well in the packs. And that's what got them to the front. And their championship rivals, Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler, they had the problems. And in the end, helmet off. You can see the heat of battle there. You can see the temperature. It was beginning to warm up in the cars. Their temperature now up to 23 degrees, but they're working hard around the circuit. You always have to do precisely that. And in the AM class, it is the AM winner, car number 24, Alexandre Leroy. He started from pole, he worked hard, and he did it solo.
Talk back.
So just looking at the AM crews as having their own sort of sub-podium ceremony there, but victory to Alexandra Leroy. Laura Kreihammer just in shot there. She was very much in the mix as well, finishing second in that class. Well, let's get ready. Let's go down to Alexandra Leroy. We've found him, we've hooked up. Here he is with Gemma.
Alex, congratulations. A nice win there and a great way to start the weekend.
Yes, a very, very beautiful day for me. I'm very happy for the team, for me. It's the best day of my life. It's incredible.
Well, go and enjoy the celebrations on the podium.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, well done.
Yeah.
Well, you can't argue when a driver says it's the best day of their life. So Alexandra Leroy finding pace with his Maserati, led the race on the run to the first corner, got overtaken by the late-breaking KTM crossbow of Martin Koch, but drove really well in the pack and enjoyed some really great racing with two fellow Maserati drivers. First Leonardo Guarini and then Carlo Tamburini, who went off into the distance, but Philippe Pret kept him busy the whole way through. So let's take a look at the results, and there it is. Victory by 20 seconds for Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini with their Maserati. Then two more Maseratis in second and third positions, both in the AM class, both driving solo, Alexandra Leroy and Philippe Pret. And then the best of the KTMs in fourth place overall, also in the AM class, Victor Mraz and Jan Krabek, just ahead of Hubert Trunkenpolz and Laura Kreihammer, and Sadie Sarmini and Klaus Angerhofer ahead of the best of the Mercedes, Christophe Bouret. Let's take a look back at the start. It was Alexandra Leroy on pole position, the yellow-nosed Maserati. He had his nose just in front, but a real charge from Martin Koch down to the first corner, but then incredible late braking, about 3 car lengths clear by the time they had to turn sharply to the right. Fairly neat and tidy behind. You can see the back of the field getting a little bit bunched up. But the story thereafter was the KTM escaping, and then the immediate story was poor Thomas Anderson getting a little bit caught out and going off the circuit along with Roberto Pampanini down into the first chicane. But the KTM was being hunted by not 1, 2, but 3 of the Maseratis. They probed, Martin Koch resisted. But surely it was going to be a question of time because the Maserati seemed to have plenty of punch. They started to get a tow. Leonardo Guarini coming past the pits, no time to wave to his crew. He's got the tow, he's made it work. Was he going to be outbraked by Martin Koch? No, he wasn't. Was he started to get through? Yes, he was. Did Philippe Pret come past Koch as well? Yes, he is, right here, right now. And the next car in the line was Alexandra Leroy. And he too would move past the KTM. But all along, Leonardo Guarini was pulling clear, came into the pits to hand to Roberto Pampanini. And the job surely at that point was done. He'd eked out an advantage and Carlo Tamburini stretched it all the more. And there is victory for LP Racing, for Maserati, for Carlo Tamburini. And the driver who started it all, Leonardo Guarini, will do it all again on Sunday.